Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the Texas Veterans Commission Women Veterans Program for our webinar with Mr. Allan Lane, a decision review officer with the Department of Veteran Affairs. I would like to offer you my deepest apologies. Today, we will not be discussing how to access your VA healthcare. The VA representative from that department is not able to be with us today. Now, when I send a follow-up email at the conclusion of today's webinar, I will include a link to our Veterans Healthcare Advocate Department so that anyone who needs to can reach out to them. HCAD can assist veterans with enrollment eligibility, appointments, VA billing issues, and other VA healthcare issues. Now, my name is Sharon Stewart, and I'll be facilitating today's event. I'm asking as a courtesy that you please all mute your mics into the question and answer portion of today's event. We also invite you to post your comments and or questions in the chat. At the conclusion of today's webinar, I will send out the links and items that have been placed in the chat in a follow-up email. Now, as we give our colleagues a few moments to log on, we're going to start. But before then, I would like to wish you all National Pet Care Day, National Brandon Day. So if there are anybody named Brandon logged on today, be sure to to ask for the rest of the day off. Today's National Scream Day, and today is also National Take Your Sons and Daughters to Work Today. Now, again, like I said earlier, my name is Sharon Stewart. I'm the Women Veterans Coordinator for South Texas Veterans Commission Women Veterans Program. I am a very proud Army vet. I spent 21 years, 6 months, and 20 days in Army, not that I counted. As a quick reminder, the Texas Veterans Commission is a state-level agency that's broken down to 8 different programs and or departments to include claims, education, employment, grants, mental health, healthcare advocacy, entrepreneurship, and of course, the Women Veterans Program. Our Women Veterans Program consists of Program Director, Dr. Krista Matthews, Ms. Catherine Smith, who covers North Texas, Miss Melissa Harper, who covers West Texas, and yes, all 3 of us are Army veterans. The newest member to our team is Miss Dolores Mendiola, a Marines Corps veteran, and I think you've seen her oorah in the chat. She provides assistance to those in the East Texas area. And yes, we're all very proud and thankful to have been able to serve in the United States military. Also note that here at the Texas Veterans Commission, we don't turn anyone away. Approximately 30 to 40% the clientele that we assist are in fact male. Now it's my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Mr. Allan Lane, Decision Review Officer, Rating Quality Review Specialist with the VA. He has a lot of excellent information to share with us and looks forward to answering our questions at the conclusion of his presentation. Now, this is being recorded, so for the sake of your privacy, we ask that you don't ask anything too specific that you don't want made public, but also feel free to direct message me so I can ask your question, and that way I will know not to mention you by name. I will simply ask your question. Now, having said that, Mr. Allan Lane, the floor is yours. Excuse me. The floor is yours, sir, and we look forward to everything that you have to share with us. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, you bet. I'm happy to be with you, and I'm assuming you're able to hear me okay?
Yep, Liam or Charlie.
Super. Thank you. Uh, I want to tell you, Sharon, how delighted I am to be part of the event today and helping the individuals that are involved. And we will have a question and answer session at the end. So kind of keep up with your ideas or thoughts. You can drop them in the chat along the way. If they kind of fit in with what I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and try to um, address them. But Sharon will be helping me to be sure we don't miss anyone. And here comes the technical part of our experience, and that is I need to be able to share a screen with you. If you're able to see that, you might just let me know. I see a thumbs up. Thanks, Sharon. Appreciate that. Um, I'll come to this in just a moment, but I wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way. I'm delighted to be with all of you today, and I want to thank you for your service in the many ways that you've continued to serve since you were released. And I'm delighted to visit with you today in general about how you can access VA benefits. My expertise is in the area of compensation. I've been a decision review officer now for a while. I was a rater prior to that. I've been serving with the VA now more than 15 years. And I really do enjoy this work. We honestly do try to find a way to see that veterans' needs are met. We will do what we can within the law to be sure that we find all the evidence that's necessary to help a veteran um, be awarded the benefits that you've earned and that you deserve. And I will give you an email address at the end where if you run into issues with your VA benefits and you remember our discussion today, you can reach out to me and I'll try to do what I can do to help. So there are a couple of things I want to be sure that I give you today, and probably the best piece of information I give you is what Sharon's already put in the chat. I'm going to do this also. There is a place that you can go on your computer. This page. I'm going to drop this simple address in the chat for you. And there you go. Now, this is simply a website that you can go to find a VA form. And if you happen to know that the form we're going to look at today is number 21-526, you could type that in there. But before you go about that, look at the rest of the information on this page. It lists here about how you can file a VA disability claim, how you can apply for the GI Bill and other education benefits, or for health care. So those are key links that you may not have known how to find other than just a general web search. But they're here on this page, which is va.gov find forms. There's also some other links here about how to request your records and documents, your military records including how to change your direct deposit information and your address in your VA profile. And it's just kind of an important place to have. If you're at times looking for particular VA forms, this might be nice to link or identify as a favorite on your own computer. Now, what we're going to do is we would have typed in here 21-526, and it would take us then to the page where we were. There is an option if you do that. I'll just kind of show you. If you do that, you get the option to download a form like I did so that we can use it for our discussion, or you can go ahead and link in to submit the form online if you'd like. But if you go to download the form, it looks like this. Now, I'm not sure why it's such a widely kept secret. But I do find a lot of folks who don't understand that when you go to the general form to apply for disability compensation with the VA, that general form is a VA form 21-526EZ. And if I were to scroll down about 6 pages, you would actually get well, it's actually 7 pages, isn't it? Or more. Let's see, it's actually page 9. You actually come to the application itself. And we're not going to review this unless someone asks a question in particular about the form itself. But as I mentioned, the hidden benefit is that the first 9 pages of this form provides for you a summary of what evidence is needed to substantiate a claim for these 12 following types of benefits. So if you're wanting to submit a claim for disability service connection for compensation purposes, or if you're not yet released and you're looking for benefits and how to see that your compensation continues seamlessly after discharge, if you have a claim for negligence due to VA care, either hospital or education or other type things, um, if you're looking for automotive allowance or adaptive equipment due to disability, if you're looking to submit a claim for service connection secondary to a service connected issue, or if you're seeking temporary total disability due to a service connected condition for which you've been hospitalized or have had to receive convalescence in a hospital more than 21 days. If you're interested in the benefit called special monthly compensation, which is generally an additional allowance that's paid monthly in a combination to being service connected at 100% or more. If you have a seriously disabled child, uh, in our um, world, that's called the helpless child benefit. But if you're looking for benefits because you have a seriously disabled child, then we're going to be talking about that as well. If you need to file an increase in a currently service connected condition, uh, if you are not permanent and total at 100%, but you are unable to work because of one of your VA disabilities, then there is a benefit called individual unemployability, or you might call it VA unemployability for short. Um, we'll have information here. Also, if you have the need for special adaptive housing or special home adaptation, now those are specific benefits to veterans with certain disabilities, but that's listed here as well. And then if you're wishing to submit a claim for presumptive service connection. So in general, and then also then very specifically, these 9 pages lead you through a summary of the evidence that you would need to submit and the eligibility requirements for each of these types of claims. So you use this form if you're filing a new claim or a claim for increased disability. And here it directs you. If you are filing a new claim or a claim for increased disability, you use this form to do that. If you happen instead to be wanting to disagree with an evaluation or with a disability decision that has been denied, then you would want to use a different form. And here it is. That's a VA form 20-0995. Now, no one's going to scold you if you put it on the wrong form. It just may have some effect on what your effective date may be. Um, but it's right here at the very beginning. If you're wanting to file a new claim or a claim for increased disability, then use this form. If you're wanting to disagree with an evaluation, or if you want to file a supplemental claim on something that's been previously denied, you would need to use this prescribed form. And you'll notice the little asterisk there that says that you can also file a higher level review on an 0996. Higher level review is what we've typically in the past called an appeal, which is either for a immediate review, or you can use this VA form 10182 for an appeal to the Board of Appeals, which is the more traditional appeal going all the way to the VA Board of Appeals. And there's more link there for you to see more about that. So our goal here is to try to help anyone who opens this form up to determine if they need this form or not, and to understand what this form is able to help them do. If a person wants to apply electronically, then you can do so at va.gov, which is the website we just touched a moment ago. And there's a section there about how to file a claim. We also identified that for you. And as Sharon has already uh, uh, properly included in the chat, you may wish to contact an accredited veteran service officer. Sharon is the one who would want to help you. That's the purpose of our webinar today. Uh, so she put a link in there for you. One final thing is that you can organize the evidence in your application that you are going to be submitting under the fully developed claim program. That's the fastest way to get your claim processed. And uh, essentially, if you're making a claim, you want to include as much information as you can. Uh, and if you include all of that, then that means that we don't have to ask further questions and we don't have to gather other information. Now, if you don't have the information you need, if we have to go for exams, if we need to find service records, there's no penalty for that at all. You'll just be telling us that you want us to process the claim under the standard process, and we then would accept our legal responsibility to assist you in gathering all the evidence that's needed to help you with your claim. And that's called the standard claim process. Uh, Actually, in my world, there's no difference here. Uh, we have very skilled um, individuals who are expert in gathering evidence. And so if your claim comes in without something that it needs, then those specialists are going to be contacting you, sometimes even by telephone, to go ahead and find out how we can get that additional information as quickly as possible. So then if you're going to submit a claim, this is the right form. The 526EZ is attached. I believe it's down on page 9. And you want to be sure and complete it and sign it. And as is mentioned up here, it can be done electronically if you are able to do that and would like to do that. So here on page 2 is the basics summary of how a claim is submitted. If it's the FDC program, which is that optional expedited process, then you submit all relevant private records, including your VA. You can certainly just identify those because we can find those, and enough information to verify your service. In most cases, that's submitting a copy of a 214. The standard claim process, of course, this applies to both. You do want to submit any other kind of information that we might need to help get private records that you don't possess that you think that we need to find. And this is the form that you would use for that purpose. Essentially, that gets your permission for us to go after that information. Of course, you want to send any and all information that you can, either along with your claim in the FTC process or as soon as you can in the standard process. What we do, if you submit the 526, then you have up to 1 year from the date we receive this claim to submit this information. Now, at this point, there is one thing that you will want to reach out to Sharon for if you're going to submit a claim and you're learning the process, and you might even do this today, and that is to visit with her about helping you to submit an intent to file, which is a form that you can find on this page that we showed you here. You can just, I believe you can just type intent. You don't really have to know the number. And see, there it is. You can download that form and look at it. See if we can do that. And there's that form. What this form does is it captures the earliest possible date that you have been in contact with the VA in relation to a claim. That's why if our discussion today prompts you to want to submit a claim, reach out to Sharon and let her help you fill this out and establish today as the first day that you've reached out to the VA in relation to a claim. From the time you submit this form, you have 1 year to submit this one, the 526 that we've been talking about here. So this form being submitted today gives you a year to submit this form, which then in turn gives you an additional year under this program to submit any evidence. And doing the process that way allows you ample time to get the evidence that you need so that it can not only help substantiate your claim, but it can preserve, in the instance I'm discussing with you today, as your earliest possible effective date for any benefit that you may be awarded. I can go through that process again with you later if you'd like, but just be sure that you're familiar with the possibility of filing an intent to claim and then following up with the proper claim form. And then under the standard process, you have up to a year to include additional evidence if you need. Now, um, we're certainly asking you, please, to get that information in as soon as possible.
If you were treated at a veterans center and you're submitting a claim related to a mental disorder or disability, you'd also want to include that VA Form 214132, which gives us permission to ask for those records. If you happen to be claiming dependents, then you would use VA Form 21-686C. That way, we would be able to pay you additional benefits if you have dependents. As I mentioned earlier, if you might be submitting a claim for VA unemployability, there is a form that's required for that, and it's the VA Form 21-8940. Then if you happen to be claiming a mental health condition, there's also a claim form, VA Form 21-07A1A, that asks for information. The reason these are listed here is so that it can save time, because these are forms we would have to ask you to complete for us. And if you're aware of the need of them at the time that you're going to submit the initial form on the VA Form 21-526EZ, then if you know to go ahead and complete these forms and submit them at the same time, it will save time in the claims processing. All right, now if we go to page 3, some of the other special circumstances are listed here. If you're listing a claim for special adaptive housing or home adaptation, there's a form for that, or auto allowance, or if your spouse is in need of aid and attendance. These are all additional forms that would help us in the process if they're completed along with the 526. If we roll down to where to send information in the middle of page 3, there's a place where you can mail this form when it's complete, or you can submit it online. And then there is this table that basically guide into the criteria that's required for each of these special areas of submitting a claim. Let me check in with you, Ron. Is everyone able to hear still? Are we doing okay?
Yeah, I absolutely. People are sending me inbox messages. So
Excellent.
yeah, absolutely. So
good deal. So now what we're going to do is, let me start with this first one where it says this is item number 5. And it looks to me like maybe my electricity may be coming back on. So on page 3, where it says section number 5, what the evidence must show, there's a big box there that says if you are claiming, and it says you have a disability that was caused or aggravated by your service, then see the evidence table titled Disability Service, which means you would scroll down to page 4. Now, Sharon, if you don't mind, I may see if I can get back on with you.
Well, there we go. Now, I don't see any of the previous chat, but I'll be able to see any chat from here on. So if you have a disability that was caused or aggravated by service, that means that you're asking for disability service connection, or what we generally call compensation. You would then go to this section, disability service connection. Now, I'm not going to do every one of these because they're all unique and special, but I do want to use this as an example. So in other words, if you're wanting to claim service connection for a disability that you believe you currently have that was begun during service, either because of an injury or an event or a diagnosis or a circumstance related to your service, you had an injury in service or a disease that began or it was made worse by service, or there's an event in service that caused an injury or disease, and you have a current physical or mental disability that you think is related to that. In other words, you think that a relationship exists between what you have now and what happened in service. Then you're talking about disability service connection, or what we call direct service connection. If you happen to only have a period of active duty for training, you may think, oh, well, I don't have active duty service, I can't be considered. But there is a method where if you were disabled during active duty for training due to a disease or injury, say you went on your weekend duty and you fell and broke a bone in your arm, then there will be evidence that you had that injury. And if you feel that you currently continue to have that disability and you think that there is a relationship between the two, then what we do is we ask an examiner to examine you and the evidence we have and tell us if they're related. If they are, then what happens is we back up and make that period of active duty to be active duty due to disability, whether it was a 2-day period or a 2-week period or a 3-month period. And so that period then is no longer considered by the VA to be active duty for training. It's considered to be active duty due to disability. Same with, excuse me, a period of inactive duty for training. If there happens to be a disability during that time, and it's shown by medical evidence that you have that current disability still, and an examiner confirms that with us, then we would make that period of inactive duty for training to be active duty due to disability. Okay, don't see any questions yet. Now, before I leave this table and go to the next example, currently there's a lot of interest in the PACT Act that was passed in 2022 that provides specific information related to exposure to toxins. Understand that that is not the same as presumptive exposure to something like Agent Orange for Vietnam veterans. Having exposure to toxins is considered an in-service event. So if you feel like you have an injury today because of being exposed to jet fuel or some type of other toxin, or if you experienced the environmental issues being in the Gulf War, and there's not another way for your condition to be considered for service connection, it can continue to be considered under the direct service connection due to exposure to toxic events or exposure to toxins. And so I just wanted to kind of make that clear. The PACT Act didn't establish presumptive exposure because of being in a location, as if someone had served in Vietnam or had served in the Gulf War, solely due to toxins. What it did, though, is two things. One, it recognized that any type of exposure to a toxic substance might contribute to a particular disability. And so it opened that door for us to be able to see it as a direct service connection. Now, do understand the PACT Act did expand some areas under which service members can be considered presumptive due to Agent Orange. It expanded all of Thailand and uh, other particular places like Guam and Cambodia and Johnston Island and things like that. It also did that with presumptive environmental and particulate exposure in the Gulf War. We'll point that out here in just a few minutes. So for the purpose of our discussion, we move now to the second of these examples. See, we're going back to this main box here. It says, if you have a qualifying disability that arose as a result of a presumptive exposure, then you would look at the section of this guide for presumptive service connection. Now, Sharon, let me check in. You haven't had any questions, have you? Oh, I see one. Someone has asked if their deceased loved one served in the Philippines during the Vietnam era. Is that included in the PACT Act? Could be. But now understand, anything that would be considered by someone who is deceased, it would be dependent upon them having filed a claim while they were alive. So maybe I need to know some more specifics. If you want to visit with me later or take down a way to send that information to me, I can check for you. So if we look here at presumptive service connection, this is the type of service connection that can sometimes be quite confusing, because the idea is, what's presumptive? To be very clear, presumption for the VA is the presumption that there is an in-service event. It doesn't presume the award of service connection, nor does it presume that you have a current disability. Presumption for us means that we have agreed by law to allow certain claims to establish an in-service event based upon location, exposure, or certain other pieces of information. In fact, this kind of gives us an example here if you look at this chart. So in order to have presumptive service connection, you must have served in a recognized location that qualifies you for the presumption of exposure, and or you have a certain current disability that qualifies you for service connection. There are specific areas where the law allows us to assume an in-service event for former prisoners of war. And there's a long list of presumptive conditions, including cardiovascular and digestive and neuromuscular type conditions, that if an individual served us valiantly as a prisoner of war, we don't require any other in-service evidence other than that they were a prisoner of war in order for them to be considered presumptive to those type of disabilities if they have them now. Also, there is a list of chronic and tropical diseases that if they become evident within a specific period after discharge, such as arthritis, neuromuscular diseases, different types of chronic diseases that we know that if you had them in service, then they certainly are issues that you're going to continue to have. If you were exposed to ionizing radiation, now understand that's not radar and that's not X-rays, but ionizing radiation or mustard gas or lewisite. And then you're familiar with this one, if veterans who were exposed to certain use of tactical herbicides, if they were in the offshore waters to Vietnam during these dates, if they had served in the Korean demilitarized zone, if they were at certain Air Force bases and been exposed to certain sprayed herbicide on C-123 aircraft. Now the law allows for any area of Thailand. It used to be just a certain grouping within Thailand, but now it's um, in Thailand at any United States or Royal Thai Air Base during these dates, or Laos during these dates, or Cambodia at certain provinces during these dates, Guam or American Samoa, or the Johnston Atoll, or a ship that called at the atoll during these dates. The PACT Act created changes and additions that are listed here, but now it's a part of this discussion of presumption for service connection. And some of you may be aware of the law that allowed for exposure to the contaminated water at Camp Lejeune during these dates to be considered for a list of presumptions such as Parkinson's disease and other issues. And then for veterans who served in the Gulf War after August 2, 1990 in these countries, or after 2001 in these countries. So if you're not familiar with this information, this may be critical information to you in terms of whether or not you want to submit a claim or not. If you served in these areas and you have disabilities, you may want to consider submitting a claim based on the presumptive exposure. All right, let me do one more, and then I'm going to ask for another question. And this is the next sample that we're looking at, and that is if you believe you have a disability or a condition that has been caused by or aggravated by a service-connected disability. A good example here is if you've been service-connected at 10% for your lumbosacral strain, lower back strain, and you're starting to have pain radiating down your legs, and you feel like that pain radiating down your legs is related to your back. Well, you submit a claim for secondary service connection related to your back. And then we go after the business of determining if you do have a disability by sending you most likely to a VA examination. And we ask that examiner to tell us if you have a current disability in your lower extremities that's related to your back. I told you I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on the 526, but I would like you to see kind of how you do this. And you would look here where you list disabilities. And here's kind of the example. If you were claiming your left knee secondary to your right knee, or the example I used was your lower extremities due to your back, then over here you just simply put in, I think my lower extremity nerve problems are due to my back. There's also an example here, of course, of what happens if you're claiming diabetes due to service in Vietnam. And these give you an example of how to do that. And that's what you would do down here for the issues that you're claiming. Okay, if you're claiming increased disability, then you're simply saying that you think that your condition, which is already service connected, has gotten worse, and you want us to evaluate that to see if the disability evaluation percentage and therefore the compensation should be increased because your condition's gotten worse. Okay, let me check in. We've been at it about 50 minutes, and I do certainly apologize for the delay while we had to deal with my connection. But so far, are you kind of understanding here that the way you use this form can be quite crucial to how you submit your claim and how we're able to address it in terms of time and potential service connectability. You look at this chart on page 3. Say, for instance, you think that your current service-connected disabilities cause you to be in need of aid and attendance, or to be what we call housebound, to be confined to your residence. Then you go to this section of this preamble to the 526. That takes us down. Don't mean to give you vertigo here by scrolling too quick. But see, that brings us to this box, which talks to the point of what you would need to know in order to be considered for an award for special monthly compensation. And there are several levels to this. The first of which is what is called a special monthly compensation due to the loss of an extremity or loss of uh, sight in one eye, or the ability to hear, or the use of a creative organ. Uh, that's called special monthly compensation at level K. There's also a special monthly compensation at level S, which is for housebound. That's the one that is discussed right here. If you have a single service-connected disability at 100% and additional service-connected disabilities at 60%. So that's an additional allowance that could be paid in addition to being 100% disabled. If there happens to be a single service-connected disability that causes you to require the need of aid attendance for your activities of daily living, such as bathing, feeding, dressing, going to the restroom, those sort of things, then there is an additional level of special monthly compensation available. In fact, special monthly compensation can be added to 100% permanent and total disability, and it can pay as much as $10,000 a month. And we don't want anyone to be that sick. But if a veteran happens to be, we want to be sure that they're getting the support that they need in terms of service-connected compensation and special monthly compensation together. Okay, I'm still kind of, let's see. Someone's asked, would secondary also include hearing loss, Trey? I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. Hearing loss can certainly be service connected on a direct basis. Maybe you're asking if you were exposed to things that may have affected your hearing in service. That would be the in-service event. Say that you were an infantryman in the Army. Well, then certainly we would concede that your hearing was exposed to potential acoustic trauma. And so therefore, based on the understanding, we would go about the business of seeing if you do have hearing loss now, and ask the audiologist if your hearing loss is due to your exposure in service. And if the answer is yes to that, then we would be granting service connection for your hearing loss. Now, if you happen also to have a finding of tinnitus when the examiner examined your hearing loss, and the examiner tells us that that is also either due to your hearing loss or due to your exposure to hazardous military noise causing acoustic trauma in service, then we would go ahead and service connect your tinnitus whether you claimed it or not, because we would consider that to be a part of your current hearing loss. Don't know if that got close to answering your question, Trey. Here in a bit, does it? Okay, good. If you have another question, be sure and ask it. So one last thing I want to use an example here is the one about individual unemployability. In order to support a claim for a total disability rating. Now, what that means is you may not be service connected at 100%, but you may be service connected at 40% for one issue, and your combined overall evaluation is at 70% for multiple issues. If that happens to be the case, then you would be eligible to be considered for VA unemployability if those issues cause you to be unable to work. And unable to work means unable to be gainfully employed for a certain amount of time. Generally, it says here, as you can see, if your service-connected disability or disabilities are sufficient without regard to other factors to prevent you from performing the mental and physical tasks required to maintain gainful employment. Generally, you meet certain disability requirements according to the law if you have one disability rateable at 60% or more, or one disability that's 40% and a combined rating percentage of 70% or more. So if you only have a 30% disability and you say, I think that prevents me from working, well, that's true. That's why you're being compensated at 30% for that particular uh, condition. But you would not be eligible for consideration of VA unemployability if that's the only disability you have. However, if you have a back condition at 40%, then you have um, lower extremity radiculopathy at 20% each leg and maybe tinnitus on top of that, you would then meet this criteria that I have highlighted. You have one disability at 40% and a combined rating of 70% or more, and you are unable to work because of your back and your lower extremities, then you would be considered eligible for consideration for unemployability. You would want to submit a claim, and you would then want to have us consider that as a possibility for you. And what that means is if you were awarded individual unemployability due to that one disability rate at 40% and others that combine it to 70%, you would then be paid at the total disability rate, 100%, based on the individual unemployability. And as was mentioned earlier, which is up earlier in this section, if you're going to do that, you're going to want to submit the Form 8940. If you're claiming individual unemployability, you'd want to complete the 8940, which is actually an affidavit where you sign and say that you are not working and here's why and when did you last work, and we follow up with further information that we need. Okay, so as I mentioned, not going to look at each one of these because I wanted to really kind of teach you to fish rather than just give you a fish. And I hope this helps you do that. I do want to mention to you one other thing, and then we'll ask for any questions. You can unmute and ask questions so we can visit. There is a very interesting resource made available to us by uh, the Northeastern VA Regional Healthcare section. It's called Sit Trip. You can see this on this gentleman's shirt. It's a Marine Corps veteran named Paul Corbett. And what I have pulled up here and what I'm going to put in the chat for you is a discussion that he hosted. It's only about 14 minutes that talks about what unique benefits there are available to a veteran who is 100% service connected already. Now, you may not be at that point now, and you may think that's not all that important to you until you are, but it is a very helpful website because if you see over to the right, there are a whole lot of other conversations here that Paul has put on his website. Say there's one of them here that I thought was kind of interesting. Where is it? Okay, so say that you're 50% overall, but you have several disabilities that if you add them each separately, you think that your VA compensation ought to be at 80%. But that's not how those calculations work. The way it works is if you have one disability at 30%, then that only leaves the remaining 70% for other disabilities to be calculated against. So in that case, if you have another 30% disability, it's not going to just be added to the first 30 and give you a 60% total. It's actually 30% of the remaining 70. So there's that conversation here that I'm kind of highlighting to you where uh, Paul explains VA math. So if you want to keep this link that I just put in there for you and look at some of his presentations, then I think they might be helpful. Okay, Sharana, what else can I do to help here? If there's someone who wants to unmute, or is there a question that you've gathered?
No, I think people have been posting their questions as we've gone along, but I do want to encourage everyone here today, if you have any questions you would like to ask, Alan is a decision review officer. He is a SME, he's an expert. This is a phenomenal time to ask him any questions. Thank you so much. Okay, I think I got something in the chat here.
I just
Okay,
put
that's your
my email
email.
there, and
Awesome.
I don't mind you sending me a question by email. I don't know that I'll necessarily get to it immediately, but I will get to it as quickly as possible or send information back to you if that would help. And you especially reach out to Sharon because anything that she can help you with that she needs more information with, she'll certainly reach out to me.
And it, absolutely. And Alan provided some wonderful information, but I do just want to keep saying, please ensure that as you navigate your VA benefits and compensation, please ensure that you have the assistance of an accredited claims
Hmm.
benefit advisor or VSO, Veteran Service Officer, someone that's been vetted and who, they're not going to charge you anything to access the benefits that you and your family deserve and or need and deserve. All right, team. Any more Alan, can you explain real quick again what a decision what exactly your job
What I
entails?
do?
Mhm. No, yeah, a
Sure, no,
DRO.
no problem at all. Decision review officer is the first line for appellate consideration of issues that have been previously denied. Traditionally, that would mean that if someone had been denied service connection for a condition that they believe was related to service, they had an opportunity to have a review of that decision. Now, currently, that means that if you do disagree with a previous decision, and I still have this pulled up, your first line of relief, where is it? It's right here. Is I mentioned to you, if you're filing a new claim or an increased claim, you use a 526. If you are submitting rather a request that a claim that has been previously denied be reconsidered because of new evidence that you can submit, then you would use the 0995, this VA Form 20-0995, and someone is going to then look at that new evidence and reconsider the original uh, decision. Now, you can, and this is where I'm illustrating what I do, you can submit a claim for a higher level review, which means a decision review officer then will go back and look at everything that has been a part of the claim at the time the decision was made and determine if there was an error or not. And if there was an error, then we go about the business of fixing it. And we do that just simply based on the fact that you asked us to review it because you think there was an error. Now, sometimes there was not an error, it was just not properly explained. And so that gives us the opportunity now to come back and explain it to you better. You may still disagree with the decision, but at least now you understand more as to why the decision was made. Let's see. It looks like Maria asked a question that's for you.
She sure did. And before I answer that, if you could just really quick go over the VA's duty to assist, because you mentioned that a couple of times.
Yes.
I'm not sure how many people are aware of that.
Yep. Let me scroll down here to our discussion about direct service connection, and that kind of helps us. In order for there to be the award of service connection, there's kind of a three-pronged requirement. Some folks call it levels. I kind of think of it like a three-pronged stool, that before you can sit down on it, all three legs have to be there. This came originally years ago from a court case that required the VA to stop expecting the veteran to prove his case. We used to require, and this is some years ago, the veteran to basically defend themselves um, and prove their case. Well, the law changed, and this is even before my time. And it was based on a court case called Hickson,
Mhm.
and it created this conversation that if you can see what I'm showing to this on the screen right now, this section where it says, in order for someone to be, and I don't know why it's highlighting everything, basically these three. In order for a veteran to be considered service connected, and it's still not highlighting right, but it's this section, this part, and this part, which basically says that there has to be evidence in service and a current disability and an established relationship between the two. And our duty to assist burden now from the VA is that when you submit a claim, even if you just submit a claim that says, I hurt my back when I fell down a ladder on the boat, and that's all you tell us, we can't deny you because you didn't give us all the information we needed. We have to now go about the business of asking you, okay, what is your current disability? What was the event in service? And not only asking that question, but we'll say, we will go after your VA records or your private records for you. We will go after your service records, and we'll review all of those things in the effort to fill in the blanks for you. So now we know that you actually did experience a strain to your back back in 1990, when the medical records show that you went to sick bay and had to be treated for 6 weeks because of the injury to your back. And then we look at your current records, and if necessary, send you even to a current examiner to tell us how disabled your back is now. And by the way, that examiner might tell us that your back is also causing radiculopathy to both of your lower extremities at that same examination. So now we have all of that information, and it was our burden to be sure we had all that information before us before we made a decision. And any decision made before that time would have violated our duty to assist and would have been premature. And in the example I've just given you, if we have that information, an event in service, current disability, including a secondary disability of radiculopathy, and the examiner's telling us, yes, the current disability is related to that injury back on the ship in 1990, then we would be required by law to award service connection at the proper evaluation based on congressional federal law of the evaluation that we would be awarding for disability. And we would also be inferring the radiculopathy. You would not have to claim that. The radiculopathy is an understood residual of a back injury. So you would have just said, I hurt my back when I fell. But because of the duty to assist, we would have gotten all that information together. And the result is you would have been service connected for your back and for both of your lower extremities at the proper evaluation.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. And I think we have a final question here. Um, I do want to address what Maria has asked. Maria, if you've contacted TVC and if TVC has your power of attorney, and you don't necessarily have to reconnect with the person who filed your claim. If you TVC has your power of attorney, then any CBA, VSO, however you prefer to call them, should be able to provide you with assistance and or insight. But I did put the link, our phone number in the chat. You can get you can make an appointment to see someone, or you can make a phone appointment. I do know claims is pretty much booked out um, at least a month out. It's people are, doing what they're supposed to do, trying to file for their claims. But yes, ma'am, hopefully that answered your question.
Okay. And Maria had another question there. I began to type an answer to it. And Maria, you can submit a claim for any disability that you believe was caused by an injury or exposure in service. You're asking the question is that you can't submit a claim due to lung exposure to radiation. Maybe that's supposed to be lung. The point is that you can submit that claim if you know someone, or if you feel like you have breathing disabilities due to radiation, even if it is X-rays or being around radar, that sort of thing. What I pointed out to you was under this presumptive section, there is presumption due to ionizing radiation. Now, think of explosion type radiation when you think about ionizing radiation. The section of the statute that addresses that particularly is talking about nuclear testing and actual exposure to nuclear weapons and things like that. But that doesn't mean that you can't say, I think that because I worked as a radiation technician in in the Medic Corps, that has affected me. You can certainly submit that claim, and we'll go about the business trying to find the evidence to support it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. I actually was a radar technician, not in the medical field, but on a destroyer in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I was just kind of wondering, just for myself and friends and stuff like that.
You bet. Well, the key thing is, I don't want anyone to have draw the conclusion that you cannot submit a claim. I understand none of us want to necessarily submit a claim that is summarily going to be denied for some legal reason. But as long as you feel like you have a disability and you have an event in service that contributed to it or caused it, we need to investigate that. And we're not going to be adversarial about it. We want to try to help you find the evidence to support the conclusion. Now, if we can't, if the evidence is just not there, then we're going to have to tell you that. But if there's a way legally that we can connect what you have with whatever happened in service, we're going to try to do that. And the reason I put my email address in there is that sometimes we don't do as good of a job as we want to do. And if you run into one of those times and you just want to talk to someone about, do I need to take some additional steps? Here's my case and here's my permission for you to take a peek at it. I'll be glad to do that with you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Mine was just adding on to Maria's question that I put into the chat.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, Trey, I was going to respond to that. Would that include nuclear reactors? Absolutely. Especially if you were part of any kind of exposure, due to a reactor failure or something like that.
Oh, right. I just want to make a quick comment. Please be sure to reach out to TVC. Again, we have claims benefit advisors. Please take advantage of having access to Allan, because he's going to be able to give you insight that the people who are charging are not able to give. So everything he just explained, the Hickson elements, he's going over information that's free and available to you. So there's no need to pay. You're really getting the access to, I mean, this is like his knowledge is a gold mine. So please, before you even consider paying for any type of assistance, let TVC help you. And again, Allan is offering his expertise and insight.
Now, understand, if you just send me an email and say, hey, we were in that conversation with Sharon that day for TVC, the first thing I may ask you is, have you talked to Sharon?
Yeah.
Because it may be that I can give you lots of information, but I can't always give you the amount of time that Sharon would be able to do. And I don't want to limit your access to information just because I happen to be busy. So always visit with Sharon first. And then if there's something else that you need, she'll say, well, what did you reach out to Allan? And then we can talk more.
Exactly. And one of the nuggets Allan gave you all is something called the Hickson elements. And 10 times out of 10, when we as veterans, our things are denied, our claims are denied because we haven't met the requirements of the Hickson elements. But yeah, we have a whole wonderful claims benefits advisor section. And I believe last year they brought over $1 billion into the state of Texas. So absolutely, I will get you connected with our claims benefit department.
So,
Having
and
said
just to
that,
summarize that,
go ahead.
we're looking for evidence of an injury or disease that began in service and a current disability and evidence that the two are connected.
That's it. That is it right there.
Did anyone have any trouble finding this form? We tried to make that easy. If there's some reason you can't, you might just do a search on a web search engine somewhere, and you'll be able to find it.
And I'm going to send a link so you can access one. I'm going to, at the conclusion of this webinar, I'm going to send out a follow-up email. I will give you the appointment link to claims. I'm going to give you access to this same form, but I do ask you, obviously I think TVC is the best, but just please, as you navigate these forms, get someone that's accredited, because, and I'm saying this very humbly, they're not necessarily intuitive. You just want to
Yes,
be
that's true.
yeah. I mean, some of these, it's like, it's not tricky, but if you don't know what you don't know, I just want to make
Mhm,
sure that all the benefits that you've earned for you and your family, come to you in a seamless manner.
mhm.
Uh,
One of the key things I'd also want to highlight before we're done, um, the question a while ago about what I do highlights this key element right here. If you disagree with a decision, but you have new and relevant evidence, say for instance that you get denied for tinnitus because there's no diagnosis, and yet you have records from your audiologist that were not included in the review of the claim, but are available, we need to see those. That will change that decision. And all that needs to happen is that you need to submit the 0995 and say, wait a minute, you denied tinnitus saying I don't have a diagnosis when I've got evidence here that I do have diagnosed tinnitus, ringing in the ears, noise in the ears, such. And so you get that to us and get it to us within the next year, and we'll be able to go back as if we had that evidence at the time we made the decision. And we can't do that if we don't communicate to you the need for that, and that's what this is for, is to communicate that need to you, then we don't know that you have that evidence and we can't change the decision.
Excellent. All right, Alan. Well, I don't see any more questions. I just want to thank you so much for your expertise, your knowledge, your time, and your wisdom. Team,
Absolutely.
in Army Talk, any alibis, anybody want to come forth and ask any questions? If not, at the conclusion of this event, I will send out the links that were posted in the chat. And I just thank you so much for your participation today. I know I learned a lot, absolutely learned a lot. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, this concludes today's webinar, and thank you so very much. Thank you for your service.
Take care. Thank you
All
much.
right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much, Maria. Bye. Thank you, team.